Hello friends, welcome to our channel Exploring Things Around, and today we will continue with our course Learn C Programming A to Z. So before we start, if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please subscribe it. So today we will cover IDE installation, C and its uses, C language basic, and we'll create one sample program to understand the concepts we learned today. So for C, there are a number of IDEs available in market, Turbo C++, NetBeans, Eclipse, and there are many more. So for our course, we will be using Dev C++. You can download it from the link given on the screen. I have put the same on the description below our video, so you can download the software from there and you can easily install it on your system. So I'm using Windows operating system, so you can download this IDE and install it. So I believe you all know what IDE. IDE is Integrated Development Environment. So for any programming language to implement, we need editor, we need compiler, we need builder. The number of different components we need. So in IDE, all these components are integrated in the same platform where we can write our code, we can compile it for error, or we can make the executable files, and all those things are provided in the same platform. So that's why we use IDE. So we'll be using Dev C++ IDE. So C is a middle level programming language. It was developed by Dennis Ritchie at AT&T Bell's laboratory in 1972, and it is a structure procedure oriented programming language, and it follows top down approach. So there are a number of bullets highlighted. We can First thing is middle level programming language. What do we mean by middle level programming language? Another thing is structure and procedure oriented programming language, and third is follows top down approach. So what is this top down approach? So we all know computer understands the language of zeros and ones only. So for human being, it will be very difficult to talk to computer in terms of zero and one. So definitely we need some other language which is somewhat similar to our English language, so that we can easily communicate to computer. So for that reason programming languages are created. So zeros and ones, they are called low level programming language. After that we have assembly level language, and then we have middle level language, and after that we have high level programming language. So C is put in middle level programming language. The reason is there are number of features available in high level programming languages which are not available in C. So that is the only reason we put C in middle level programming language. For example, handling related functions, and there are many more which are not available in C, and still we need to write code from scratch to achieve those functionality. Next is structure and procedure oriented programming language. C is structure and procedure oriented programming language. The reason is any given task in C is broken down in smaller units, smaller problems, and we try to implement functions to handle those problems, functions or procedures to handle those problems. And the way to store the values, we most of the time go for the structures. So we try to store the values in structures, and we create functions which work on those structures to solve the bigger problem. And that is the same reason we call C follows top down approach, because any given bigger problem is broken down to smaller units, smaller problems, and we create small functions to handle those problems. C is being used in number of places. C is used to create system applications. C is being used to develop most of our operating systems. C is used to for device drivers. You might have heard about in your system you have number of device drivers to connect your keyboard, your mouse, your headphone, all those things. So we need device drivers. Even those are also written and implemented in C. So once we start learning any language, right? So how we proceed? First, we try to learn alphabets, then words, then by combining these meaningful words, we try to write some genuine sentences, and then we build a story around. So similarly, in the similar fashion, we learn C also. So first we'll try to know what all the letters, what all alphabets are involved in C, and what and how do we categorize those into words, and what kind of sentences we frame in C, and what is our story in the end. So program is the story which we build in C. Okay, so that is our final output program. So C alphabet is nothing different from any other language. So C alphabets involve numbers zeros to 1, letters A to Z, small or capital, and special symbols. Whatever you see on your keyboard, all those are your valid letters for C programming language. And combining these alphabets, we create words in C. So there are three type of words in C which can be framed. One is constant, one is variable, and the final is keywords. So constants, as you might know, the values for this will not change. So for example, if there is one box containing 9, and if it is always going to contain 9, so we can say that is a constant. Any value given A to Z, 0 to 9, any special symbol, if that all are constant, they all have some specific value which will not change. For example, if you are saying 2, that will always be 2, that will not change. Similarly, if you are assigning A to any field, so A will always be A, that will not change. Okay, so that is your constant. So in C, you can divide constants in two parts. One is primary constant, another is secondary constants. Primary constants are integer, real, and character constants. So as I said, integer 0 to 9, using 0 to 9, any whole number, those are your integer constants. Real constants are having decimals value. You call float also then, like 9.2, 8.502, something like that. So those are your real constants, and character constants like alphabets, special symbol A to Z, 1 2 3 4 comma, dot, all this, they all have some ASCII value on backend constants which are constant, they will not change. Secondary constants are constants which are built from the primary constants. For example, array, pointer, structure, union, enum, etc. These all are derived from the primary constants. So as we go through deeper in the programming language in the C, we'll cover all these types of primary and secondary. So no need to worry about that for now. Variables. So our second type of word is variable. So variable in C means the value will change for it. So for example, if you are defining a variable x, for example, so during the program life, it can have different values. It can have one at a given time, then later it can be, after some calculation, it can store value 15, anything. So the value is changing, that's why we call those variables. So when we define some variable in C, we need to follow some naming convention, otherwise our compiler will give error. So there are some highlights here. So like for example, first bullet point is first character in the variable name must be alphabet or underscore. It doesn't allow any other value apart from this as your first character. Okay, for example, if you use hash ratio, it will throw an error, or hash principal rate, something like that. So it will not allow because the first character should be underscore or alphabet. Second thing, the name should not have any blank space or comma in between. If you want, you can put underscore. Like for example, number of months. If you want to give a variable, if you want to define a variable to store number of months, and you are saying that where you are going to give that variable name as number of months, so don't use spaces in between. You can either use Hungarian naming convention or put underscore in between. Okay, and another final point, no special symbols other than underscore are allowed. So these are some constraints we need to follow while giving variable name. So again, since this is starting, so you might be feeling new, but once we start writing programs, once we start writing code, you will get familiar with this and it won't be a big thing for you. Third type of word here is keywords. So keywords are reserved words in C. C compiler has a specific meaning for these. So you cannot use these words as a variable. You cannot use these words as a constant because they all have a specific meaning to C compiler. If you try to use these words in different manner for different requirement, C compiler will throw you an error. So we have 32 keywords in C. If you see here, auto, double, int, struct, break, and other. So as said, you cannot use these 32 keywords in context of any other thing apart from the keyword. You cannot use these names as variable. You cannot use these words as a constant. So make sure of that. You cannot use these names to give some function name or anything. Okay. So before we get into our first C program, so there are some bullet points. So each instruction in C program is written as a separate statement. So that is nothing new in any program, in any language. It's not a programming language. In any language, we try to give separate statement for each instruction. Okay, so nothing new. Next part is we use semicolon as a terminator. So like dot we use in English language, here we use semicolon to tell our compiler like this is the end of our current statement. C is case sensitive, so small xyz and capital xyz, these two are two different values, so don't forget that. And using comments last, but that is very important point. We should practice writing comments in our program because it helps someone else who is going to work on our program. They will know why we had written that piece of code and who had written, on what date he had written. So all this kind of information we can put under the comment section in our C program. So let's get into program. So I have opened dev C++. Let's create one new source file. So this is our editor part given by the IDE. Here we can write our source code. So first we'll write hash include studio.h. So this is called preprocessor part, and hash include tells we need to include studio.h header file. .s, that means header file. We need to include this header file in our program. So this instruction is basically for compiler, for preprocessor. Void main and we will simply print hello world on the screen. So we use printf function for that, hello world. And as said, semicolon will be used to tell end of the statement. So let's save it. Save as. You can give any name. So let's give hello world. Extension will be C. So from save as type you can change it C source file. Okay. So let's save it. So we have written our first program here. If you see, we have included standard input output header file, and we have created our main function, and inside that we are going to print hello world. So go to execute. You see here compile. F9 is the shortcut for that in dev C++. So you can compile from here as well. So if there is any error or warning, you will get to know. So you see here error 0, warning 0. So we are good to run our program. Go to execute, click on run. So you saw here, right, output came hello world. So after that, if you press any other button, you will be out of this screen, this console. So you might see some difference here, like in other ID like Turbo C++ and all. You need to include one console IO here. Hash include, you might have noticed that hash include, you used to write conio.h, right? But In this ID in dev C++, they have their own console here, and so we don't need to call this header. In fact, this header file itself is no more used in dev C++. If you go and look into include folder, you will not find any file saying studio conio.h. So we are good here. So we have successfully written our first hello world program here. So the comment part I was talking about in our presentation, we said like comment is something important. So this is how we should always try to put comment. Like here in top you can say developer name, you can give your name, you can say date started. Okay, so this kind of information you can provide under comment. And simple purpose of your program, you can say this is our first program, this is our first hello world program. So for anyone new who might be working on your code, it will help for them to understand the requirement. So we use double backslash here, as you see, to define comment. If you have multiple lines and you want to put everything as comment, you can even use the shortcut. So you can use this as a shortcut, backslash star and backslash. So you don't have to keep this double backslash on each line. You just put all the lines inside this opening and closing backslash stars. So hope that helps. This is how we write a program. So practice it on your system also, because that only will help you. By watching you might be understanding it, but the more you practice by yourself, more you will get. And other differences are like if you are working on Turbo C++, for example, we are working on dev C++, but if you are working on Borland or Turbo C++, some other ID, you might see like even your program is giving no error, and when you are running it, so let's run it here again. Once you run it, this screen comes, you can see the hello world, but in those ID this screen might be coming and going very fast that you will not even observe your code. The reason is screen is not holding for a moment. So in those cases you can add one extra line here saying get ch and save. So what will happen by doing so, your screen will be put on hold. So after this it will even ask you to give one more enter. Not even enter, you can use any keyword, and after that your console will go. So that is one advantage kind of thing you can say in in dev C++ we have. So by default it holds the screen for you. So you see here hello world got printed because of the printf statement, and after that you see the cursor here. So this is coming because of the getcs. So unless until we press any letter of our keyword from our keyboard, it will be on hold. So I pressed it, but another thing you can notice that whatever you're pressing, that won't be visible on your console. So that is because of your getcs function. So nothing to worry. So if you have any requirement where you want to hold the screen for your user, and you don't want the user to see what he is pressing, for example password or anything, so you can use this kind of functions. Okay, and if you see here, after that dev C++ is giving us control press any key to continue. So once you click here, then this console will go, but if it was Turbo C++, once you had pressed the button, it would have gone. Okay, so those are the differences you should know. Another thing is, so another difference I can highlight here is, once you run it again, it will print hello world only, But if it was turbo C++, every time you run, earlier printed hello world will also be on the screen. That will not go by default. So in those cases, you might have seen people writing clear screen function, CLR SCR function. So in Turbo C++ or if you're writing for other IDE, you might be using CLR, SCR to clear your screen before every run. So that is the reason, so that you get fresh output on your screen, and whatever got printed earlier, that all will be erased out. But in Dev C++, you don't need to use that function, because every time you get the console, that will be fresh and nothing will be kept from your earlier run. And since this function is defined in conio.h header, so that is the reason you need to include conio.h in those if you are writing program for Turbo C++ or any other IDE. So we have successfully written our hello world program. Let's move to next part. So we saw in our ID we had editor where we wrote the code. Then we had the compiler. We simply pressed F9, so that compiled our code. So compiler, it checks for the validity of your code, or if there is any syntax error, or if there is any missing component, it will highlight that. But note it, if there is any logical mistake you have done in your code, compiler will not highlight that. Compiler will highlight only if you have done any syntax related error, or if you are using some function, for example, and you have not included the libraries for that, a header file for that. And once we and after that we execute it by pressing shortcut is F10, which creates the executable file for your source code and gives you the output. And compiler creates the object label object file, that is assembly level language. So after that we have C instructions. So we covered C alphabet, C words. Now let's see instructions. So C instructions are basically the statements which you frame by combining all the C words, keyword, variables, constants, all those things. So there are three type of statements you will basically notice. First is type declaration, second is arithmetic instruction, and third is control instructions. So any of your statement in C will fall into any of these three categories. Type declaration instruction is something like, for example, if you are having one variable total or interest rate or city, so we need to define those variables first on top of your program. So this is how we write int total, float interest rate, city, something like this. So these are your type declaration instructions. So we'll look into more once we start writing bigger program. We'll definitely go through those. Arithmetic instructions are, you write one statement to do some calculation. For example, interest is equal to p into n into r divided by 100. So in this statement we are doing some arithmetic operation, and that's why this is called arithmetic instructions. And after that we have control instruction. Control instruction is something which controls the flow of your program. Okay, the sequence. So this is used, like we have number of types here. One is sequence, another is decision, another is, then we have repetition, and we have case. So these are four broad categories of control instructions in C. So far we have understood what are letters, what are words, and what kind of statements are written in C. And by combining all these only, we create programs in C. So we have successfully created one hello world program, and now we'll start extending this program to handle some bigger problem, to create some new applications in C program. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned. We'll be back with our new session on C programming. And if you like our video, please press the like button and share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe it. Thank you. Thanks for watching.